Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and in this video today, we're going to be talking about how the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did not make a move at the NFL trade deadline. Let's go over all the trades here and see which ones would have and which ones wouldn't have made sense for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is per Aaron Wilson over on Twitter, by the way. So the first trade here, Leonard Williams gets moved over to Seattle for a second and a fifth round pick. Doesn't really make a lot of sense for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to be somewhat involved in that. Not for the value that was given, right? I think the Buccaneers are kind of in a weird limbo-ish type of spot where Seattle's 5-2, right? They're a team that can really afford to kind of go for it, and a trade like this makes sense for them. Not necessarily makes the most sense in the world right now for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Also, would have been a very similar type of role to what Vita Vea may have been doing. And they've already got some pretty good depth, or have invested a good bit at depth in terms of their defensive line with Kalijah Cansey. You have Greg Gaines in there. You have Logan Hall in there. Might as well just continue to develop those guys. Similar thing can be said for Kentavious Street. That's just a depth move. Don't really have to look too deep into that. The first interesting one here is Montez Sweat, right? And this is something that I talked about where, hey, maybe Montez Sweat may be a guy you want to trade for if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But for a second-round pick, that's tough, right? Chicago, they can kind of afford to do that because they've got two first-round picks, their own and the Carolina Panthers first-round selection, so they had some draft capital to work with. Montez Sweat is going to be that number one guy on their defense, or I guess really you could argue their entire front seven. So the Chicago really needed a star, and Montez Sweat is a good defensive player. You know, not to say he wouldn't be a good starter for the Bucs, but given the Buccaneers' investments with Shaq Barrett having a big deal, with Anthony Nelson getting re-signed, with Joe Tryon-Shoyinka being a former first-round pick, to give up a second-round pick for a guy like Montez Sweat doesn't make a lot of sense, you know, for me for that price tag. So that one, you know, hey, maybe at some point the Tampa Bay Buccaneers may have been interested in a guy like Montez Sweat, but not for that price tag. I don't blame the Bucs for not being involved in that. They obviously wouldn't need Joshua Dobbs unless you are, you know, kind of on that, you know, I don't even know what train of thought that would be, what train that would be. I mean, even if you don't like Baker Mayfield, you would have to hate Baker Mayfield, Kyle Trask, and John Wolford and just say, you know, bring in a new guy entirely. Maybe there are people out there who think like that, but that wouldn't even be a thing until after the season. But Arizona sends Josh Dobbs over to Minnesota. I mean, Minnesota needs a QB, duh, right? This is the first one right here. Minnesota traded away starting guard Ezra Cleveland to the Jacksonville Jaguars for a 2024 sixth-round pick. I don't know if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were in on this type of deal. No idea, right? But this is definitely the first type of trade where I would say, okay, you know, maybe the Buccaneers should have maybe been in the running for this. And we don't know if they were or weren't, but it's interesting, right? Given the interior offensive line not being great this year, Cody Mock's obviously a rookie. I think that you can give him a pass because, you know, he's a rookie, he's learning, but you have, you know, Robert Hainsey, who is struggling at center. Obviously, Ezra Cleveland does not play center, but Matt Filer, he's on a one-year deal. Behind him, you've got Aaron Stinney. Maybe you could have brought in Ezra Cleveland as a guy, and I do believe he's on an expiring deal, I think. So you would have to re-sign him, but you kind of have some cap space and maneuverability after this offseason to kind of get something done. This may have been something that I would do if I was the Bucs. Just to bring in another guy, bring in a reliable guy who wouldn't even, this could be a long-term play, right? Ezra Cleveland is still very young. He's a very solid, capable offensive lineman. So this would have been one where I would have said, like, yeah, I mean, you know, maybe you could say the Buccaneers would have been in on this. Another one, which is, it's kind of iffy. I'm a little torn on it. We didn't see a lot of wide receivers get moved. Donovan Peoples-Jones was one of them. He was traded from the Cleveland Browns to the Detroit Lions for a sixth-round pick. 2025 sixth-round pick at that. If I was the Bucs, maybe I would have been in on this. Donovan Peoples-Jones is a solid wide receiver, right? In the past, we've seen some good stuff from him. I think that, you know, he's a guy that could have contributed. He's a former sixth-round draft pick in his own right. Hasn't necessarily got a ton of opportunities this year, but last year he did have 839 receiving yards starting 14 games. Like, he is a solid dude. Does he kind of give you similar numbers to what you were seeing with say, I don't know, like a Trey Palmer or somebody along those lines. Yeah, and also very similar build, right? 6'2", 204 pounds. So isn't going to give you too many different things regarding the overall, like build of your wide receivers, but still could have been an interesting depth piece, giving you somebody who, you could just have more valuable veteran depth at wide receiver, right? He's in his last year of his deal, so you will have to re-sign him. Don't necessarily know if he's going to be too expensive to bring back, and it would just give you a big-bodied wide receiver at the age of 24. If I'm being, super pessimistic, who's going to know what the heck is going to happen with Mike Evans? You could have Donovan Peoples-Jones there. Even regardless, it still would have been good depth. For a 2025 sixth rounder, would have been an interesting thing. While we're here, I do want to look up Ezra Cleveland real quick, just to kind of see. Yeah, again, former second-round draft pick, 6'6", 312. Dude has been a 17-game starter the past 2 years. Started 6 games for the Vikings this year. Like he's a good guy as well. So like these are two, Ezra Cleveland and Donovan Peoples-Jones, for 2 sixth-rounders. Maybe you could have been involved in that. Who knows? Rasul Douglas is interesting, right? You get Rasul Douglas and a 5th-round pick going away from Green Bay to the Buffalo Bills for a 3rd-round pick. That one's a little bit iffy. I think that right now the Bucs, if I had to guess, are pretty happy with their secondary. You have Antoine Winfield Jr., you have Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean, Christian Izzian's been a really pleasant surprise this year. Maybe you could have said, like, hey, put him at safety because Ryan Neal has not been great this year, but you have Dee Delaney there as well. That one, maybe would have made sense in a certain situation, but probably not for a 3rd-rounder. Probably not. And the last one here, this is most interesting to me. Chase Young going over to the San Francisco 39ers, the San Francisco 49ers for a 3rd-round pick. You want me to be honest, man? I would have done this deal. I really like Chase Young. He's a good player, and I would have loved to have seen him in Todd Bowles' system for a 3rd. Maybe the Bucs offered a 4th. I don't know. I mean, maybe the Bucs were in on this type of deal. I have no idea. 3rd-rounder, I would have paid it. I mean, the guy's got so many crazy levels of upside. This would have been one that I would have been in on if I was, thinking about it. Just because the Chase Young is very good at football, man. He really is. Like, he has 5 sacks so far this year. It seems like he's rebounding. Would you have had to have re-signed him after this year? Yes. That definitely would have hampered things. Also, the San Francisco 49ers are in way different of a position than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are. They're trying to win a Super Bowl. Maybe Tampa's trying to make, they're trying to win the division, make playoffs and show some good growth. And that's with a lot of these trades, right? Like Detroit, they're trying to go make a Super Bowl run. Buffalo, trying to go make a Super Bowl run. Jacksonville, probably trying to make a deep playoff run. Chicago, I don't really know what the heck Chicago's doing. They just wanted a good player, I guess. Seattle, trying to make a deep playoff run, right? Like, that's where you see a lot of these teams who are getting these players are having 5-2, 6-2 types of records. The Bucs aren't there right now. Point blank simple as that. So, like, it's not surprising that the Bucs weren't in on any of these deals, especially whenever you look at some of the trade compensations. But there are some players where I would have liked to have seen the Buccaneers maybe get a deal done, but it just didn't happen at the end of the day, and that's fine. Chase Young would have been so good on the Bucs defense, but it didn't get done. You had a couple of interesting guys here like Ezra Cleveland and Donovan Peoples-Jones, but really overall, out of all these trades, let's say like 8 or 9 trades, 3 of them you say maybe, would have considered. Chase Young, I would have done it right away. But didn't happen. I just wanted to kind of cover that and kind of cover the deals that did happen. Which ones probably would have made sense for the Bucs, which ones didn't make sense. And it is what it is. So, folks, what do you guys think about the Buccaneers not making a deal here at the NFL trade deadline? Would love to hear your thoughts and opinions about this down in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope you all enjoyed. And as always, folks, I'll see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now. And go Bucs.